concentrate on the superficial front line. Marvin was having some issues, so I'm not moving him too close to us because otherwise he will literally fall down and fall apart. The poor guy has some dried up fascia, I guess. So the superficial front line, it's very similar to what we did last week with the back line, where it goes up the legs, separates itself, it's not totally interconnected, and it goes back from your pubic bone all the way to the muscles in the front of your neck, and then they're attached just under your ear, like behind your ears. But the fascia itself goes a little bit higher up into the hairline on each side. So just to go a little bit over those lines, it means that it goes from each toes, lines through, passes through the side of the muscle. This muscle is very deep, so we'll have different ways of getting into it. Where you're pushing right next to the bone, when you push, you feel that little squishiness in there. The real depth of the muscles is multiple centimeters deep. So to really get into the full fascia line of this whole muscle here, we'll try to go with different ways of going with one ball versus two. The fascia then goes from the tendon, the famous kneecap tendon, and you would think that that would just be like one little line here. It actually goes all around, like a shower cap, all around the kneecap. And the kneecap is actually inside the fascia. It's not on top of it. The fascia doesn't just pass under. It really hugs the whole kneecap. Then, of course, we're going to the quad, which is a pretty dense quad, means four. So there's 4 parts of muscles crisscrossing on top, gathering together here onto our wonderful hip flexor. We move on to the pubic bone, to the deep, deep muscle that attaches onto the pubic bone. And this is what we refer to as the 6-pack, which, by the way, is an 8-pack. And we go onto the sternum, and we'll play around with different areas of the sternum, passing through the clavicle, and then on each side of the neck, that famous, the dancers have that really thick muscle there, that really connects your frontal part of the body, but it's also part of the side. It is what stabilizes your head into the center as you are taking a step without having your head shifting each time to the side. So what we're going to be using for today is, of course, we have our 2 massage balls. We'll use them separately and inside the tote. And then today is going to be big time the squishy, gorgeous ball, or something that's a little bit more giving, so that we don't go too harsh onto that very sensitive area of the sternum, which, if you think again of how I explained last week, how the body brings itself up with the musculature of the back part, what's happening in the front is really exposing all of our very sensitive bits, we're going to call them. We are the only race that are really front and outgoing with everything open up. So when there is something happening in life that is any kind of trauma, the first reflex, that it is from a loud noise to having a surgery to being cold or just feeling uncomfortable, the first thing that happens is the closing in and the overprotective area of the center of your emotions, your heart, your lungs, and then, of course, of your private parts, and everywhere where the deep blood vessels, the big ones, flow through. This is where we want to protect it and close back in. What happens then is that all those front muscles are shortening. So we're going to try to find the length back into those front muscles and erase all those trauma and different feelings into our body. Let's start with standing and taking one ball And of course, to get onto the front part, which means the top part of the foot, we kind of have to play around a little bit. So make sure you have something to hold on to. And in some of my previous classes, we've played with this, where we do bring the ball right under the middle part of the foot. Zoom in a little bit. There we go. So we do bring one ball right under, for example, the right foot. And of course, it's always feeling good to give it a little roll and find that real center point where you can still have a little bit of your heel on the ground. And then we're holding on to something so that with the other foot, we can go right on top and move the skin with your toes, with the full foot, whichever position makes the most sense to move and open and feel like you are stretching the skin over, like you would want to move the whole foot so that it hugs front, back, and side over the ball. You might feel a little burning sensation as you move. I have my socks on, so of course the sock material is going to move on my skin also. If you can do this barefoot, even better, then you can really feel the motion of the superficial part of the skin and fascia moving over the bones. You can also do a little pin by twisting your foot on top of the other one. And then relieve the pressure. Take a little moment to feel what's going on. Some heat in there maybe. Nice. Let's move on to the other foot. So same thing, finding an area that has enough comfort that you can balance. By the way, for the ones that do buy the new yoga tuna balls, if you feel that they're too hard for a certain part of the body, the best way to make them softer is to just do what I'm doing right now, is rolling on them, kind of squishing them into the floor. They will come back into their own shape as you release the pressure on them, but that makes them just a little softer. So again, going with the other foot right over it, and you can go over the bridge. It's kind of a 2-for-1 because basically your foot that is under the other one creates a little bit of a friction of the back part of the foot as you massaging the top part of your left foot. We like to share the love. And then also lengthening over, making your foot longer and wider. Think of that duck foot feeling. Going then with your toes or with your heel, whichever is comfortable. Then pinning and turning, little twisting on the skin. Now, if this is really not comfortable and it's too much pressure to kind of stand on this ball, I'm going to show you in a second another really good way to play around with your yoga tuna balls on top of the foot and relieve the pressure. So a nice easy way to also play with just, oh, come on, Mr. Matt, don't get stuck. Just with the top part of your foot is you bring your foot in front of you and you take your ball and you pin and pivot like you're squeezing a lemon, following those lines between the bones. This is a very gentle way, something you can do literally while you're watching TV to release the tension between the bones. Now, as I explained, the fascia here gathers into a thicker area right on the top of your ankle here, which really allows all those tendons and everything to stay flat down. Otherwise, we'd have this gigantic diagonal poking out of our ankle. So this is what holds everything together. So we're going to get on this part right here of the ankle, on the line of my sock there. And for this one, you can stay with your shin over a stool, or I'm going to show it also on the floor. And we need the two balls into the little bag. This out of the way. So we're gonna have the toes with the balls in together. I like to do this over a big yoga block so that the balls are right on the end there. And it's gonna go right at the crease of my ankle. So that while you lean on it, you'll be able to literally mobilize your talus and gliding that right in there. So again, like if this is not comfortable for your knees, you can do this standing with this being the chair. And we bring the ankle just over the edge. We have to like play around so that it's really on the end and your toes are dangling down. And then it's up to you on how much pressure you want to put down. Again, if it's too much also on your knee, you can always put like a little pillow right in the crease of your knee so you don't have all the pressure right onto the joint. And once we're here, we're gonna let the foot point and flex. And also a little side to side. I call this my little windshield wiper, or dragging the toes in the water. And little ankle circles. Well, don't make it that, because it's really, there's not that much depth to this area. Go gentle, like you don't want to bruise. Nice, take a little break. And if it's comfortable for you, get a little moment to feel the difference between the two ankles as you are leaning down. Normally I do this also with putting a little bit of a belt or something around my ankle so that as I kneel down, my feet don't fall to the outside, but I keep my ankle bones totally together. It's very different on what happens in this whole front line of the body. If you start sickling, you're opening only a partial part of that. And then the same thing also with flexing the feet and keeping your ankle bones totally together, and see if there is a difference. One ankle might be more comfortable than the other. It's actually quite, even if there's a little bit of tightness into the big toe, if you have, like me, I have a bunion on one side that's sometimes talking to me. As I open the ankle here, I am able to find more comfort into that heel press, which is really important when you want to go up the stairs, when you want to take a nice big step, or when you want to take that first ongoing for sprinting. Let's go on to the other ankle. So it's always a little goofy on finding the position. First, you're gonna be a little too high on your ankle. Your knee is gonna, it's always better if your knee is a little lower. This one on a yoga block, it's actually easier. And so that your toes are free to move under you. I'm gonna relieve a little bit of the pressure. You can see more what my foot is doing. So we're gonna let it point and flex. And with the balls and the little bag, it will grip on the skin. So you get also already a little bit of a stretch through this whole line from toes to knee, or somewhere in between the shin. Then we have our side to side. If you ever had an ankle sprain, you always think of those areas of the ankle as being like a thick band all by itself. It's not just, there is a thickening there, but it's like one gigantic sock that goes from your toes all the way through to the knee. And little ankle circles. A little clicking happening sometimes in there. And the other way. I wouldn't stay on the ankle like too long, just because it is a lot of bones in there. we're playing around with not all of the 26, but a big part of all of them. Okay, nice. Let's move on to the shin. So I'm gonna use the same, I have this actually kind of fun, a bigger box that's not a full gigantic one, but it's a little bit bigger than my yoga block, because my yoga block is a little too small. If you're more comfortable, again, you can do that on a chair, so you can hold on to the back of the chair, and we're gonna keep the 2 balls into the tote. It's going to go on each side of the shin. So you have the bone right here, and we're gonna slowly, takes time, roll up this entire area and see where there is maybe some little bumps, some little bridges. And then if it's comfortable for you, we'll also move the balls into the length to go just onto the muscles. Then you're gonna go next to the bone and just onto the muscles. So get into that depth of this one muscle that is so much deeper than we think it is. So finding that comfortable position, that it is in kneeling or on the chair, and starting with a very gentle rolling over you can do it on the chair. It's actually sometimes easier to create the pressure that you need. And find a spot, maybe somewhere in the middle, where there's maybe a little bit more heat happening into the body. And we are going to move our pelvis a little bit back and forth, a little shimmy here, so that you create more pressure on one side or on the other. Going across the fiber. Sometimes if you've been running a lot and you get that little bit of shin splint feeling, or the beginning of it, as you really press deeper onto that outside muscle, you might feel some tingling, a little bit of nerve connection all the way to your 2 last toes. That little pinky is talking to you. If you feel that, back off just a little bit. You don't want to like over stimulate that area. And again, a little bit of rolling back and forth. And then relieving the pressure. And if it's comfortable for you, we are going to go lengthwise. So bring, or you can just do it with 1 ball. I find that personally a little too intense to go with just 1. And we bring that onto that outside of the shin. And we have a little bit of a pivot, mini windshield wiper with your knee to get into that one area where it's 2 points, because we have the 2 balls. And ungluing, it's a feeling of ungluing the muscle from that bone. Letting that blood flow happen. And then relieving the pressure. Again, take a little moment to feel what's going on. Ooh, I feel like my bone has disappeared on that side. Nice, let's move on to the other shin, same thing. I'll do it this time on a chair so you can see what's going on in the 2 options. So when you have your chair like this, just bring your leg right over it. And you can then like really decide on how much pressure, the more down you will kneel yourself, the heavier the pressure, or a little bit less, and just freeing up the motion. With this chair here, I have to adjust a bit more. I don't have as much freedom to move my leg from my knee to my ankle. Oops, I almost lost it. So find a middle point here, a little bit of pressure down, and just moving a little bit. I'm moving my body so that I go a little bit up and down into a little pressure point, digging into the fascia, into the bone attachments of the fascia. Maybe a little bit more rolling, going close enough to the top part of the knee area, and then all the way to the ankle. Again, this is an area that for most people, it's pretty intense. You don't want to overload the body on the sensory of burn and pain. We're not into the no pain, no gain. I actually believe that it's no pain, lots more gain. Should be the new slogan. Nice, relieve the pressure, and then we shift the two balls into the bag into our side of the, I just found a nice little spot there. And then kneeling down as necessary. Again, if on the chair you don't get enough love and affection, then the kneeling down allows you to be a little closer with your body weight on there. Really, every day can be different. Again, just a little motion, back and forth. I did not know there was tension there. It wasn't there yesterday. What did I do today? Wonderful. This is a moment where if you are using the recording or if you're retaking this class at a later time, what I recommend is that you pause here for a second and just go for a little walk. Just see what's happening into your gait. See what's happening on how your foot is feeling the floor, how your ankle is activating, and how the front of your shin feels like it's soft and can move through water, connecting in a very different way. There's a misconception sometimes on fascia release, and we only think of the release, the elasticity of it. Yes, big time, of course, because the human body in this society creates a lot of compression and closing in. But there's a lot to do also with proprioception, with the sensory, with the awakening of being able to use a muscle that has been dormant, because we get rid of all the toxins and we get rid of all the adhesions into that area. And so working on those whole lines open up the flow, and you'll get a very different feeling of how you are walking through life. Okay, so our next step, we're actually going to skip first the knees and move on to the quad to get that blood flow going, and then we'll go back to the kneecaps because that's a little bit more intense. So for our next section, we are going to have the two balls out of the bag. And we're going to come lying down on our bellies. So take these guys here. So what is going to happen, get them out of my little pouch here. What's going to happen is that you can choose, depending on how intensely tight or tired your quads are, you can go with one ball on each leg and go through that. If that's too intense, then of course you can divide the love and put the two balls back into the tote and go one quad at a time, and go with the two balls at the same time. So we are going to lay down on our belly, move things out of my way, and place right in the middle on each side. And try to find a way, flexing the feet at first, and finding a way to relax those muscles. Now, I say those muscles because we refer to it as the quad, but there's 4 of them. It's like you have 4 kids that need to all behave at the same time. Not happy, not easy. So if you want, you can bring your head down to the floor. I'm going to stay this way so I can see what's going on there. And the first thing you want to do is feel like you're going to compress so you can stretch your knees and activate your quads. Press the legs down into the floor and then release. And again, extend, pull up your kneecaps a little bit and contract your quads and release. And because the balls are kind of tiny, we're going to move and roll over them to go a little bit from the inside all the way to the outside, and really cut across all those fibers, moving your pelvis. Sometimes it jumps over one of them. Hello. Now, the quads, kind of like the hamstrings, there's a lot of stuff happening in there. A lot of tension, a lot of unknown area or unused or just not working all together. You can take a long time on this. Like, we're trying to maintain the 1 hour class, so I have to move faster than what my body would want sometimes. So again, feel free to pause and take a little bit more time for your quads if you wish to do so. So now we're going to move a little bit higher up on both sides. Still maintaining that center line right in the middle here. You can keep your head down still. And now we're going to move a little bit up and down. So with your flexed feet and a little bit on your elbow, or just if you're shifting your body, it's really just 2 centimeters, not even a full inch. Little bit of movement going along that line, and that makes that part of the muscle just a little bit longer, a little bit leaner and happier and opening up then maybe all the way to the front of the hips as a reaction, and allowing that flow of energy to go through from your feet all the way to your spine, or vice versa. Nice. Now, if you want to try just for fun, you can have the 2 balls next to each other and just go on one side, on one quad at a time. And then bend the knee and stretch. So that's kind of like an action and release. You put the muscle on stretch here, so you have a different connection into pressing into the balls, and then you relax it down. Lengthening the muscle as you press down into the balls, and then release one more. Then you can keep your foot up and just moving a little bit in and out. Again, our little windshield wipers. You can find some new and unknown area in that wonderful quad. Remember, as you go further to the outside, you get a little closer to the sideline, which we'll do next week, when we get onto the IT band and all that fun stuff. Nice. Remove and do the same thing on the other side. 2 balls next to each other. And you pick the point of the quad that you are looking for. Each time you can go a little bit higher, a little lower. You don't have to go exactly where I'm going. So we're now going to move the foot up and down, up and down. And then keep the foot up, and we have our little motion there. Often I realize that for people that have had or have a knee injury, maintaining a good quad and hamstring control is very important. But what happens that on the knee that has the injury, we put all of our intention. On the other side, there's a lot of compensation. And so there's going to be sometimes, most often I should say, more tension on the healthy side that's trying to support the not so healthy side. I'm saying that because this is my good side, and I'm feeling my quad has been compensating a little bit for the other one. And then release, remove the balls, and just take a little moment to feel how those legs are feeling there, how long they are into the front. Starting to feel the reaction of what happens in the front has an echo onto the back of the body. We're going to feel that more as we get through the rest of the frontal line. So as I promised, we're going to take care of our kneecaps. And for this one, because I know that some of the people that will be following this class have some knee injury, also because maybe you just haven't played with your kneecaps as often as we should. We are going to do this part just in sitting, but there is a whole way of doing it exactly in the same position that we were for the quads. So as a little reminder, the fascia that covers the front line is not just this one little line that you can feel right here. There's that little tendon here. And the fascia connects all together into the tendon. Tendon is fascia. So you don't want to think of it as a just passing on top. It is hugging, and it goes a bit beyond what you see as your kneecap bone. It goes and hugs all the way around. So from your shin, you have this line here. It connects to that little center point here, and then it hovers all the way around to get into this bigger part as your quad. So just take your kneecap and see if you can move it a little bit side to side. There might be some restrictions here and there, and that's not so much just the bone that's the problem. It's all the tension, maybe from your IT band area, maybe from the shin. Well, hopefully we have rolled that just out. And then we're going to go to that, I call that the big lip of the knee. You have this big part right on top of the kneecap here, and we're going to roll that and erase it away like you're folding dough over the kneecap. You're going to fold that away and pull it away from your kneecap. That creates a little dimple, a little hole, a little, what do you call that? I can't think of my English word there, but you know what I mean. Please email me the word that would fit in for my sentence here. We're going to take one of our balls, and we're going to go right into that little crevice. There we go. I found a word that works. And in there, we're going to twist one way and twist the other way. And you can pick a direction. We're going to go all the way around the kneecap, moving the skin as you dance around the fire, dance around your kneecap, all the way through. Then we go back the other way, whatever direction you want, we go the other way. Now, as I'm doing this, like, you know, it's not super intense. Like, yeah, I feel the skin moving. There's not a huge thing happening on the direct sensory. But if you've had knee pain or knee discomfort after running or after kneeling a lot or gardening right now, see if as you finish this, you feel a difference, one knee versus the other. We didn't really do a full like squatting to test it out and see what's going on. Sometimes I play around, I don't like squatting. I don't have a meniscus and I don't have most of my ACL in this knee. So for me to squat down means a lot of strength from my quad to support my knee from shifting all the way through. So squatting has never been really my favorite since this injury. However, if I do this whole massage around there, I connect my inner thighs, I can squat all the way down, no pain, no compression, just a nice flow into there. Let's go on to the other side. So first finding, again, the movement. And it's funny, it's always one side is just a little bit more comfortable moving that kneecap around, moving the skin away from the kneecap also. Feeling a little bit what's going on in there. Is there space? Is there adhesion? Is there a sensory that is talking to me in a maybe a nice way, maybe a not so nice way? And then moving that skin, that upper lip of the knee, moving that away, separating that up, so lifting up the first part here of your quad area, basically, creating that line, creating that little dimple. And right in there, you feel there's like space. There's like a little squishiness in there. There's a little space between the bone and the flesh and the muscle. That's where you are going to go into that little crease there and bring the ball right in there and create a little bit of a pin and strip action. Pressing down, just jump like you're doing the beginning of a lemon press onto your juicing machine. Now, as we go all the way around, we kind of crisscross the front line and the back line because your hamstring attaches onto the front of your lower leg part. All those communications are going to be talking to each other. And I just went twice the same way. So I'm going to reverse my circle. I was enjoying it a little too much. Sometimes you just find those spots, you go like, oh, I feel some blood flow. I feel some release. I just could do this, could just do this all day. And then release. I'll show quickly on how this is done if you feel like you want something a little bit more intense. Everybody's body, everybody's sensory is different. So if you feel like, okay, I really want to feel what's going on in my knee, I'll show it on my knee that can actually handle it a little bit more nicely. So you remove again that little, create that little space, and the ball is going to go right there. You see if you can maintain that. It's a little tricky as we're moving, of course. And so you go right on top of it this way. And then you are going to have a very soft knee bend. So you only bring your foot just a teeny bit up, not all the way up, because you'll feel if you go all the way up, your quad starts sliding and you get onto the quad muscle. You're not staying onto that dimple of the knee. And then here we have our little moving in and out, little mini rotation of the leg to go. So with this way, you're not going to go all the way around the kneecap. You're just going to go right on top of it. This can also be done on top of a chair, but it's a little bit intense on how you're holding on. And I find that you end up creating more tension on your opposite side to maintain the position of kind of half squatting and kneeling and all of that. So find what is comfortable for you. And then release. And just feel what's going on into your knees after doing this. And just for a little tester, let me show you how we can test the quad strength. Now take your gorgeous ball or a squishy ball or a big fat towel. And you can play around with 3 different areas into your legs. You can go right between your ankles. You can go right between your knees, or you can go higher up inner thighs. I'm going to go right between my knees just so I have that middle point. I'm going to squeeze that ball so there's a connection into my inner thighs. And I'm going to have just a little rising up of my heels. I'm not going to go all the way up. I'm just going to have a little bit of a lift of my heels up. Maintaining that lift, I'm going to squat down. Now, if I would do this without rolling my knees first, this is as far as I could go. But now, not bad for no meniscus and no ACL. And this was done with no pain. So it's really an amazing thing to do for injury prevention. And also if you have had a surgery, if you have had an injury onto your knee, to really maintain the health and the blood flow. The knee is one of the most complex joints that has the most amount of cartilage. This is really the part of the body that has the most cartilage in it. Cartilage does not have its own blood flow. So how does it really lubricate itself? With the synovial fluid that goes all the way behind the kneecap and then hugs like this gigantic curve all the way to the back of the knee. The only way to really lubricate that, to have a healthy knee motion, is long, flowy walking, not running, not jumping, walking, because that has the full leg flow. If you can't walk, then you sit on something high up. You put maybe a heavy boot or a little bit of a weight onto your ankle, and you just flow your leg kind of in and out of the water. And that motion, full extension and not full bending, just a nice easy flow, is the best way to really get that knee, to get the full fluid that is necessary to heal and continuously lubricate the cartilage in there. Moving on to the frontal area of the spine, basically. We're going to start with a middle point. And basically, one of the issues, again, with what happens with certain muscles, and for people that have had babies or had C-sections or other abdominal surgeries, there is sometimes a little bit of a separation. If you have that separation between your two abdominal muscles, I will not roll right on top of it. So we're going to start with going from one side and gathering it back to its center. So really reconnecting the muscles together. The alignment of the body as we change and as we try to protect each other, there is sometimes a tilting forward of the pelvis and then a tilting back of the thoracic spine and then a forward of the neck. So we want to gather this back so that this can come back on top and then this can release. There's this whole zigzag that needs to happen into the whole body. Of course, it all depends on your alignment. We're going to assume for a second that's what we want to play with. So we are going to lay down onto the squishy, gorgeous ball. You don't want it to be too inflated. You want it to have some give. So if you have a Yamuna bowl, sometimes their density, the texture is a little thicker. So make sure that it's not totally inflated all the way to the maximum. And I'm going to lean onto the side a little bit. And then I'm going to roll towards the center. Let's see if I can find an area where the camera can show what's going on. So I have one leg fully stretched and my other leg here is a little bit bent, so I can push myself really. So this is called the plow technique, and really think of digging in, pushing the snow to the center, and then let go. Lift your shovel out of the snow, get back into it, and then push it back to center. This is similar to the plow that we did to gather the muscles into the thoracic spine and shoulder area last week. So it has a similarity. Of course, we're not just onto the main abdominal muscle. There's a lot of layers right on top that connect all the way to your spine. So as we're doing this whole front of the body, if you feel any reaction all the way to your back, that's normal. They're all attached together. Then changing sides. I'm just going to spin myself around so you can see what's going on. So I am going right onto the side. That's the leg that's going to be stretched. I am bending the other knee, and I go a little bit from the side of the body to the center. So I'm going a little bit beyond the rectus abdominis, or your six-pack that should be an eight-pack, but I call it the happy one-pack. Nice. Then our next area is going to be right below the belly button. Now, if any of this lying on the floor is too intense, I like to also just do this in sitting, where I just compress the bowl, and I would prefer to actually do this onto the skin itself. I have too many layers on today. So if you are in the comfort of your own home, lifting up the t-shirt and bringing the bowl right onto your skin. And then with that, you can have a very gentle movement over the skin, or a little pivoting onto the skin. That's if you've had surgery or some bladder sensitivity. You don't want to compress and push right on it and wake up that sensitivity or that irritation in there. So that's just the gentler version of going into the attachment of the rectus abdominis right onto the pubic bone. And in lying down, you can bring it right under your belly. If you feel that it has really a lot of tension, this also refers to your pelvic floor. You can't really avoid having compression in there, and it also gets into the guts. And so if you're doing this with a full stomach, go gentle. You know, you're moving your foods around beyond what your body is capable of doing on its own. If you have to go to the bathroom, please pause this and then come back. But we're gonna just move very gently side to side. If it's too intense, then the nice trick is to have the little contract and release. So if you tug the pelvis in a little bit and push your belly into the ball, contract, and then exhale, release. One more time, contract and release. And then you'll see that the muscles have gotten a little bit more of the message that it is okay to let go. It is okay to open up. It is safe to open up. Nice, relieving the pressure. Now, let's go a little bit into the thoracic area, and more specifically on your sternum. So the sternum is really this big part that is right into the center here. And if you go just a little bit to the side, you feel a little divot, and then almost like a little hill. And then you have, I'm gonna do like this, almost like little hands that you feel, little fingers on each side. That's really where the bones of your ribs are attaching onto the sternum. As you dig in there, you can do it just with your fingers, you will feel that there might be some tension in between what we call the intercostals, right? In between each rib, there might be a little sensitive point. That can refer to what's happening actually into your thoracic spine. Anything that happens to the back is going to mirror itself into the front because they're interconnected. It's a full bird cage around. There is no opening. It's all connected. So for every tension, every vertebrae that is not totally aligned, there's going to be an action and reaction into your thoracic area here, into your sternum area. So we are going to lean right on it. Again, if it's too intense, this can be done in just hugging the bowl in front of you, trying to go onto the skin as much as possible, and you can pivot or roll it across. Anybody that has a little bit more tender areas in the chest, into the breast, do it just in sitting. It takes time to find the comfort of passing over all of those areas. There's a lot of sensitive lymph nodes, etc. If you've had that it is breast implant, that it is breast surgery, or breast cancer, just be mindful that there's going to be some areas that are just not as comfortable. But for every healthy tissue, to maintain that healthiness, we want to move things, we want to release things. And for that emotional part, if you've been feeling a little bit more darker, opening and releasing this, allowing this to open is going to get that happiness of the flow of happiness, I like to call it, to have space to move through. So it means that you can lay down right on the ball. And then depending on your own comfort, you can keep your arms right in front of you, or you can bring them next to you. And the head is going to be down as much as comfortable, and you're really hugging. You're making the ball hug and push your chest so that your chest becomes concave. You're going to take a nice big inhale, and as you exhale, you're going to bring one shoulder more towards the floor. Pass back through center, and then exhale to the other side. And this one, if you have some shoulder tension or between the shoulder blade area, there's a lot of little nuts and things that don't want to let go. As you're moving across here, you might feel some reaction right between your shoulder blades, because again, like I said, it's all connected. So you stay below your collarbone. You don't go right onto the clavicle. You stay right below. Armpit area is as far as you, well, you don't go all the way to the armpit. You stop before that, is what I meant to say. And then come back center. Remove the ball. You can bring yourself comfortably back into a sitting position. You will start feeling that doing this is going to start relaxing the body. It really goes into the nervous system that releases endorphins, releases that feel-good feeling, and also just that ready for bed, calming down the system. There's a huge connection. I'm not going to go into the whole nervous system area because we are into the fascia, but remember that your fascia hugs not only just the muscles, not only every cell of the muscle, but it hugs every nerves and passes the message of pain and discomfort. And there's a lot more nerves that come up and up to the brain to connect all those messages and give all the information. Then there are nerves from the brain down to the body. So allowing all this to release and relax and flow, and you will feel the flow into the rest of your body too. Coming on to the last part of the frontal plane of your fascia, we get onto the part of the neck here that you can feel that when you turn your head and you kind of tense everything here, you feel that muscle tensing. You can hold it in your hand. For some, it's more prominent, and it goes from the back of your ear right to that little dimple here of your clavicle. So you can go with your fingers and kind of feel like you're just erasing the tension. And that's going to just take care of the skin to move away. And just having a sensory between your fingers and that muscle. It's actually quite nice to do this even in the shower in the morning, or if you take a shower before you go to bed. If you've been talking a lot, there's a lot of tension that goes right in there. But we're going to do this with our gorgeous ball. Now, of course, as we're going to pass from one area to the other, you're going to create this little U shape. The ball is going to make you get out of the way anyways. Be aware, we're passing over the big arteries here. So a little bit of redness is good. Purple, not good. We're gonna go with our color coding here. So we're gonna go from the back of the ear, like right on the edge here, a little pressure down, rolling down, passing the chin over it, and going on to the other side. As you pass through the center, release some of that pressure. You don't have to like strangle yourself. You press down, you release a bit, and you go to the other side. And again, press, pass, and reach, and press, and reach. Two more. Last one. Nice, come back center. Just have a moment to feel like, how is my neck feeling? What's going on? So for people that really struggle with postural, heads forward, onto the computer, leaning forward. As we get older, we lean forward. It's not just into your shoulders. It is not just into your thoracic spine. It is not so much because of the curve of the neck. It is mainly because this muscle here that connects the side of your neck to the front is short. So you can do all the exercises in the world to try to adjust all of that, but that muscle here is still gonna stay short. So until you have released the tension and elongated the fascia onto this mastoid here, then only will you be able to balance that head right where it belongs. But actually, it's really not that much work at all. It's not that heavy when it actually is right on top of your hips, knee, ankles, and so on. So hopefully with this in mind, you are a little bit more aware of your frontal line of your fascia. I just wanted to finish with audible as we are, maybe getting ready to relax for the evening. If you go with your fingers and you go right behind where your hair is actually starting behind your ears, this is really where the fascia will finish up. And if you feel the bone, so where the muscle finishes, you go a little bit higher up, and there's a very, very tiny little hill and a little dimple where only just the tippy top of your fingers can fit. Once you feel that, if you are just moving the skin up and down and around that area, this is a very important area for people that have ever had cranial therapy, craniosacral therapy. This is where you can feel the pressure and feel the tension and feel the connection to the membrane that is under your brain, because it attaches exactly at the same area into your skull. So if you release the tension right there, chances are you might somewhat talk a little bit to that membrane that is right under your brain and release and create some energy of motion and emotion into those areas. So take a nice big inhale, exhale, and then literally take your ears, and as we are talking about the frontal plane, the whole fascia, of course, we're not talking about the face. There's its own entity in there, but we're gonna open the front part of the face and pull the ears back, yawning out. And one more time, pulling the ears. And now we are ready and presenting ourselves to the world. Thank you so much for today.